After my brother disappeared with my car only to have it found mangled, I confronted my parents' blind favoritism and unearthed my brother's suffering through hidden letters. I battled betrayal, tracked him to our childhood cabin, and fought to rebuild trust. And I reached the end of my driveway, my breath caught in my throat. I knew something was wrong before I even turned the corner. I'm Emma Collins, 27 years old, and I live in Salem, Oregon. After 12 hours on my feet at the clinic, I was craving my couch, not a crisis. But the moment I jingled my keys against my thigh and glanced up, I saw the empty spot where my cherry-red coupe should have been. Panic twisted in my chest. I stood there, hand pressed against my heart, staring at the asphalt. My car wasn't there. My lifeline to independence, the one I'd fought so hard to afford, gone. I punched at my phone and dialed my brother again. Jake's voicemail picked up on the third ring. "Hey Emma, I'm busy, leave a message." His voice sounded too calm. I scrolled through old texts trying to make sense of this. Last month he'd borrowed it just for a quick spin, and I'd laughed it off. Bring it back by dark. I'd told him. Come home at midnight, keys jingling, claiming the engine had never felt smoother. I should have seen the warning then. Why did I let it slide? My fingers hovered over the call button, then I tapped message instead. I typed, "Jake, where's my car? When are you bringing IT back?" and hit send. My hand shook like a leaf, the screen blurring as I reread, demanding, angry, scared. It was too calm compared to the mess inside me. I backed up to the street, eyes scanning for tire marks or a scrap of red paint. Nothing. The streetlights were already blinking off for the night. I could feel the dusk creeping in, shadows rolling under the hedges. It made my skin crawl. A memory rose unbidden. Us on summer nights, racing down these very roads in that coupe, music blasting, windows down, laughter echoing against our eardrums. Jake's grin was wild, untamed, like he believed life was endless. I'd trusted him then, the pact from childhood. I'd cover for his kid stuff. He wouldn't cross my lines. Lines shift, trust phrase. My phone buzzed again, no reply from Jake. I tried Mom's number, straight to voicemail. Dad, same. My breath turned shallow. I sank onto the curb, pressed my forehead against my knees. How could they ignore this? It wasn't just about a borrowed car. Something felt off, like this time it wasn't a prank or a joyride gone long. It was something darker, more permanent. I stared at the blacktop where my car had been parked. Every second that ticked by echoed louder. Tick, tick, tick. My pulse pounded in my ears. I didn't know if Jake had taken it or if someone else had, and I didn't know which possibility was worse. The empty driveway mocked me with its silence. I stood, hands balled into fists. I would find him. I had to. But first, I needed to face the fact that my brother's silence wasn't a joke. It was a challenge, and I was running out of time. If history was repeating itself, I needed to stop it. Before the next memory was the last one I ever had with him. First time Jake borrowed my car, I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my lemonade. I was 25, fresh out of med school exams, and he slipped onto the driver's seat like it was his throne. Just a spin, he'd promised, eyes bright as street lamps. I shrugged because that was our bargain. I'd be his alibi for any teenage stunt. He'd honor the one rule, back by sundown. He'd peeled out of the driveway, tires singing, and the world felt infinite. Years later, memory tastes bittersweet. Tonight I sit at the family's oak dinner table, candles guttering, the same table where Jake once unloaded seashells from our beach trips. Mom ladles mashed potatoes, Dad carves roast. I push peas around my plate, heart hammering like a jackhammer. Jake's probably just staying late at the studio, Dad says, glancing up from his plate. The studio? I force my voice flat. He doesn't even go there anymore. Mom sets her spoon down. Emma, stop worrying, he's a grown man. But grown men don't vanish with your car keys. Flashbacks surge. The nights I paced, waiting for creaking gates. The mornings I found the coupe limping home, dents hidden in shadow. I had laughed those off once, believing in the boy who chased sunsets, not the man who broke promises. I leaned forward, voice trembling. Do you remember the pact we made? He'd respect my boundaries, right? Dad's knife clinks against his plate. Boundaries, he repeats, as if I'd invented the word. He's your brother, Emma. This is just harmless fun. Harmless, I swallow the bitter lump in my throat. Fun, I whisper. Do you know how much that car means to me? It's my ride to work when I piece together shifts at the clinic. It's independence. Mom's eyes soften, but only for a second. You have your license, dear. You can take the bus. You'll be fine. The words slice through me. I used to believe she had my back. Now she's telling me my boundaries, my needs, don't matter. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Another unanswered text to Jake. I imagine the red coupe skidding down dark roads, flames of memory dancing behind the windshield. Is it so wrong to ask where my own car is? My voice cracks. Dad exhales, shoulders slumping. Emma, enough, let's drop it. Mom gathers the china with a practiced calm. Their dismissal settles around me like dust. I glance at the empty chair beside Jake's, its cushion still warm from the last dinner he skipped. I push back from the table so hard my chair grinds on the floor. No, I say, louder than I intend. No, I'm not dropping it. My parents don't meet my eyes. Across the table, the ghost of Jake's laughter seems to echo. I realize I'm the only one who sees the danger in his silence, and I'm alone in this fight. Outside, the night air presses against the windows, and I know I can't go back to pretending everything's fine. Not when the next knock at the door might bring news I can't undo. I grab my purse. I'm going to find him. I tell the empty room, and for the first time, I don't care if they think I'm being dramatic. On the drive home, every shadow feels like a clue, every roadside a threat. Because trust isn't given, it's earned. And Jake's run out of chances. I don't know where he is, but I swear I'll find him. I slammed the car door, and my heart leapt into my throat the moment the engine roared to life. I'm throttling down Interstate 5, windows up against the night's chill, every mile dragging me farther from home, and closer to answers I'm not sure I want. Jake's apartment sits 5 exits south of downtown Salem, a dilapidated brick block with flickering neon numbers. My fingers drum against the steering wheel so hard I swear I'll break my nails. My phone buzzes, no reply from Jake, but a group text from his friends blinks on the screen. I pull off to read it. "Hey, Em," it says, "we'll hit you up soon." No signature, no clue who's talking. I pinch the bridge of my nose. Soon doesn't cut it, and I pull into the parking lot. The lights are half dead. Shadows swallow most of the cars. I spot the red coupe's usual spot. It's empty. My pulse kicks up again. I scramble out and pace the cracked asphalt. Jake's building smells like damp carpet and leftover pizza. I stand under the hallway's flickering bulb and take a shaky breath. The note by the buzzer says 205, so I climb the stairs 2 at a time, stomach twisting like barbed wire. I knock. No answer. The door's ajar. Inside, the stale scent of sweat and stale beer greets me. The living room is a war zone of pizza boxes, empty soda cans, and clothes strewn across a sagging couch. My pulse thunks. I step in. "Jake!" I call, voice echoing off peeling wallpaper. Silence. I pick up a slice box, cold and hardened, and a torn receipt for gas on the floor. No keys, no charger, no sign of him. I sift through a pile of hoodies on the bed and find his favorite flannel, stained at the sleeve with dried mud. My stomach drops. I slide open his desk drawer, empty. No wallet, no notebooks, no phone. Just a crumpled family photo, me and Jake grinning at the coast, sunburned cheeks, and a single sticky note that reads, "Don't look." My breath catches. "Jake," I whisper, voice cracking. I back out of the apartment and bump into Mrs. Ramos, the neighbor. She's watering a sickly fern in the hallway. Her eyes widen. "You're Emma, Jake's sister." I nod. "Have you seen him?" She shakes her head, voice low. "Not in days. He's usually so around." She glances at the open door. "I'm sorry, dear." I swallow. "Thank you." Back in my car, I slump behind the wheel, the city lights bleeding through the windshield. I scroll through our messages. "On my way," he'd said last night. But that was hours ago. The gas receipt I found was from a station 60 miles east toward the Santiam Pass. My chest contracts. I think of winding mountain roads at night, where cell signals vanish and help is a prayer. Another buzz, a second text from that silent chain. "We'll be in touch when we know more." Touch, no more empty words. They might as well be riddles. I glance at the rearview mirror, catching my own haunted eyes. I realize how fragile this all is. One wrong turn, one misread clue, and I could lose him forever. I flick on the headlights and head back onto the highway. Every curve feels like a trap. Every stretch of asphalt echoes with my fears. Because the more I look, less I find. And the darker it gets, the clearer it becomes. I am utterly alone in this hunt, completely in the dark. I woke before the sun, jolted by my phone's shrill ring. "Officer Daniels," a calm voice said. "Is this Emma Collins?" My heart slammed into my ribs. "Yes, there's been an incident," he continued. "A red coupe matching your description was found at sunrise, mangled by the side of Highway 22, about 60 miles east of Salem." I pressed the phone to my ear, so hard I thought it might crack. "Jake?" "No one inside," he said quietly. "No witnesses. The car's roof is caved in. No license plates. You'll need to identify it at the scene." My breath caught. I flung back the covers, threw on jeans and my clinic jacket. At the wheel, the road unfolded before me in gray dawn light, fog twisting through the pines. The coast to mountains highway felt endless. Every mile marker that ticked past carried us farther from home, and closer to a truth I didn't want. When I arrived, yellow tape fluttered like wounded birds around the guardrail. Officer Daniels stood beside the wreck, rubber gloves on. The coupe's red paint was chipped to bare metal. The windshield lay in jagged shards on the ground. I walked forward, every footstep heavy. "Is this?" My voice trembled. He handed me the keys dangling from the ignition, my keys. I closed my eyes for a moment, bracing. When I opened them, I saw the roof twisted inward, as if a giant's fist had crushed it. The passenger door hung half open, bent beyond repair. "No sign of Jake," I whispered. He shook his head. "Nothing, no personal items aside from these." He held out a mangled cell phone, screen cracked. "We'll run prints, no IDs." I crouched by the passenger seat, touching the torn upholstery as if I could feel him there. My mind spun. How had he escaped? How had he survived whatever force of nature did this? The world felt searingly silent. No chirping birds, no wind in the trees, only my ragged breathing. Fog thickened, curling around my ankles like fingers. Memories flooded in. Jake's careless grin, engine roaring as he shifted gears, the wind ruffling his hair. He always chased thrill, I'd always chased safety. But now that chase had gone too far. Tears blurred my vision. I pressed my forehead against the twisted fender. Guilt crashed over me. If I hadn't let him borrow it, if I'd set boundaries, if I'd done something differently. My voice caught on a sob. Officer Daniels put a hand on my shoulder. "We'll keep looking." I pulled away, anger surging. He could be anywhere, hurt, lost, or worse. He cleared his throat. "I'll send a team up the mountain roads, but once the wreck's processed, there's nothing more we can do here." I stood, numb. The car that had been my ticket to freedom lay broken like a promise. I felt hollow, as if the engine of my world had stalled. As I climbed into my rental SUV, loaned by the police, I stared out at the coupe one last time. The morning mist swallowed its silhouette. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. "If he's alive," I whispered to the trees, "I will find him." I turned the key. The engine growled to life. Ahead, the mountains loomed, their peaks lost in clouds. Somewhere up there, Jake might be waiting, or he might not. I eased onto the road, shadows shifting around me, and pressed down on the gas, because the only way forward was through the wreckage of what once was. Toward a brother I refused to lose. I kicked off my shoes as soon as I stepped inside, boots thudding against the hardwood. The house smelled like stale dinner and regret. My parents sat on the couch, Mom scrolling her phone, Dad flipping through yesterday's paper. Neither looked up. "Back so soon," Dad said, folding the newspaper over his knee. His voice was low, cautious. I let my keys clatter onto the kitchen counter. "The police found the car," I said. My words hung heavy between us. Mom glanced up. "I saw an alert on the news. I'm sorry, honey." She set her phone down, but her eyes flickered away. "Sorry isn't going to bring him back," I snapped, my voice sharp. "Or fix the crushed roof. He could be anywhere, hurt, stranded, dead." Dad's shoulders tightened. "We don't know that, Emma. Let's not jump to conclusions before we have all the facts." I punched the counter, mug wobbled. "All the facts. The fact is you're treating this like a missing sock." My heart pounded. "He took my car, stole it, really, and now you're telling me to calm down." Mom rose and crossed her arms. "Jake's your brother. He's always pushing limits. We've been through this." "You've been through this," I cut in. "You've always let him push boundaries. You excuse him when he's reckless, but when I demand respect for my property, my life, you tell me I'm overreacting." Dad stood. "That's enough." His voice was steel. "He's out there. We all want him back. Blaming us helps no one." I backed away, chest heaving. "You're protecting him." The words stung as I spoke them. "You'd rather pretend he's a kid doing a joyride than admit something seriously wrong." At that moment, the front door banged open. Mike, Jake's best friend, strode in, shoulders squared and eyes too bright. He held a latte in each hand. "Emma," he said, setting one cup on the counter. "Hey." His smile faltered when he saw my face. I heard. "Thought you might need caffeine." I ignored him, turning back to my parents. "See, even his friends are playing along." Mike cleared his throat. "Look, Emma, it's fine. Jake just needed space." He trailed off as I whirled on him. "Space," I hissed. "He nearly died in that car, and you call that space?" Mike's expression hardened. "Come on, you know him. He's always been intense. He needed to clear his head. Give him time, and he'll show up." I shook my head. Time's what got him here. He ran off, left me to find his wreck alone." My voice cracked. "You all, family and friends, you've been protecting him from consequences, and now you think that's okay." Mom's eyes watered. "Emma, don't you me," I shouted. "Where was this concern when I begged you to stop letting him borrow the car? Where was this support when I tried to set boundaries?" Silence slammed into the room. Mike looked down at his shoes, shame warming his cheeks. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose. I spun and fled to my bedroom, slamming the door behind me. My palms slid down the wood, heart hammering. Alone, I sank to the floor, back against the door, breathing in ragged gasps. Betrayal burned through me. Everyone I trusted, Mom, Dad, Mike, they all chose Jake over me. My phone lit up with another group text, no new info. I dropped it onto the bed. I realized with a cold twist in my gut that I've been fighting this alone, and the only person I can count on now is myself. I pressed my forehead into my knees, listening to the quiet. Outside, dusk deepened. I needed a plan, and whatever came next, I'd execute it on my own. I followed the GPS ping's tiny blip across my phone screen like a lifeline, each dot pulling me farther from the city and deeper into the woods. The signal led me to Santiam State Forest, past winding gravel roads dotted with ancient pines. Dusk draped the sky in bruised purples and grays. My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. My rental SUV grumbled to a stop at the overgrown drive of the old lakeside cabin where Jake and I once camped as kids. The boards were warped, moss crawling up the walls, windows clouded with grime. A rusted no trespassing sign hung lopsided on the gate. I climbed out, legs shaking, and crossed the yard in silence. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and stale smoke. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the roof, painting silver stripes across the floor. My heart hammered so loud I could taste it. I swept the beam of my flashlight over dusty furniture, propped logs, and an old photo tacked to the wall. Jake and me, sunburned and smiling beside a lake not far from here. Then I saw it, his jacket draped over a chair, muddy at the hem. My breath caught. I rushed forward and grabbed it. In its pocket was a folded slip of paper, water-stained but legible. "I'm sorry." No signature. A wave of nausea crashed through me. I sank to my knees, clutching the jacket. Words felt like a confession and a curse. I folded the note into my palm, fingertips damp. The cabin groaned as if exhaling my fear. I called his name, voice cracking. "Jake, show yourself." The echo swallowed my plea. Silence answered. I stood and paced the narrow room, eyes scanning every shadow. There, the wall by the hearth, scrawled in charcoal, "Help me." The letters were jagged, desperate. My pulse spiked. Help him. I swallowed the lump in my throat. This was no juvenile escapade. This was a plea, and I'd almost missed it. I flicked through my phone, diving into the GPS logs. The coordinates had jumped here an hour ago, then gone dark. No new signal. My pulse thundered in my ears. If he was here, he'd planned to cut off the tracking. He didn't want rescue, he wanted escape. My breath caught on more memories. The nights he cried in our tent when Mom and Dad yelled. The time he stared at the lake and said, "I can't breathe here." I'd been so busy demanding answers, I hadn't listened to the question underneath. Why was he running? Footsteps creaked behind me. My flashlight flicked to the door, ajar, moving on its rusty hinges. I squared my shoulders and stepped toward it. Outside, the moonlight glinted on water, distant and still. The lake called to me just like it had called him. I turned back to the cabin, voice low. "Jake, I'm here. I'm not giving up on you." Another creak. The door swung wider. My heart leapt. But the floor beyond was empty. A sudden chill raced down my spine. I lifted the muddy jacket to my face, smelling his sweat and earth. The note burned in my pocket. I closed my eyes, fighting tears. If this was his last message, I had to decide. Stay here waiting for Ghost or chase whatever trail he'd left behind deeper into the dark. My phone buzzed, a final ping 1/2 mile east. The cabin faded behind me as I stepped back into the night. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and let the forest swallow me whole. I never thought old papers could cut so deep. In the dim light of my living room, I spread yellowed envelopes across the coffee table. Jake's hidden cache of letters and my mother's diaries, retrieved from the attic this afternoon. My hands trembled as I read his scrawl. "I feel invisible at home. No one notices when I disappear. I'm drowning in their expectations." Each confession felt like a punch to the gut. How had I missed the tremor in his voice when he borrowed my car? How had I let my anger drown out his pain? I sank onto the sofa, the letters crumpling in my lap. The diaries revealed the truth. Every time I complained about my boundaries, Mom wrote of my selfish demands. Every time Dad defended me, he fumed that Jake was always the good one. They'd never meant to hurt him, but their blind favoritism had left him stranded in his own home. A knock on the door broke the silence. Mike slipped inside, eyes wary, arms cradling 2 mugs of tea. He sat beside me without a word, handing me a mug. We sipped in silence, the steam blurring our reflections in the window. "I found this," he said softly, holding out a tattered notebook. Inside, Jake had sketched the coop crushed under a mountain, then himself submerged in water. He wasn't just running, he was begging for rescue. Tears burned my eyes. I closed the notebook. I blamed him for taking my car, but I never saw the crash inside his head. My voice cracked. I was so busy fighting everyone else that I didn't listen to him. Mike nodded. "We all turned away, but you," he paused, searching for words. "You're the only one who can face the family. You're the one he trusts." I wrapped my hands around the mug, its warmth seeping into my palms. The silence between us felt honest, like a bridge across the chasm I'd ignored for too long. "I'm afraid," I admitted. "If I tell them what I found, they'll hate me. But if I stay silent," my voice faltered and I swallowed. "I'm the reason he spiraled." Mike reached out, placing a steady hand on mine. "Silence was easy. Truth is harder, but you're not alone." I closed my eyes, the tea's warmth and Mike's grip grounding me. The house felt too quiet without Jake's laughter, too still without his chaos. I realized that healing wouldn't come from blaming anyone. It would come from honesty. I stood, letters in one hand, notebook in the other. "I need to talk to them," I said, voice steady. "Tonight." Mike rose, brushing dust from his jeans. "I'll be there." As I crossed the hallway to confront the family's secrets, the weight in my chest shifted. The path ahead was fragile, uncertain. But for the first time since Jake disappeared, I felt ready to walk it. Because sometimes the only way out of the darkness is to shine a light on what you've been hiding. And I was done hiding. I parked at the cabin's gate. As dawn painted the sky in pale pinks and golds, air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and promise. I took a breath, clutching the stack of letters in my pocket, and stepped up the gravel path. Mike followed, silent support at my back. Inside, the old wood floor creaked under our feet. I'd cleaned the place last night, swept the hearth, wiped down the windows, set fresh mugs by the kettle. The cabin looked ready for a reckoning. My parents arrived next, hesitating at the threshold. My mother's eyes wary, my father's jaw tight. "Motion them in." "We're here because we need to face the truth," I said, voice steady. The table by the window was bare, sunlight spilling across its surface. I laid the letters and diaries between us. Mom's hand shook as she picked up a diary. Dad folded his arms, guilt-lined in his shoulders. I swallowed. "I found out last night how much Jake's been hurting. He felt invisible. He borrowed my car as a cry for help, and none of us heard him." Silence pressed in. Mom's eyes filled. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I never realized." Her voice broke. Dad's voice was raw. "We failed him as parents. We made him believe his needs didn't matter." He sank onto a chair, head in his hands. I felt the tension crack like ice giving way to warm water. I I turned at the door when footsteps crunched outside. Jake stood there, gaunt but alive, eyes red-rimmed. He froze as if the sight of all of us was both punishment and salvation. "Emma," he whispered. My throat tightened. I stood and crossed the room in 3 long strides, stopping inches from him. Our eyes locked, 2 siblings who had lost and found each other on a knife's edge. He swayed as my father rose, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. Mom followed, tears streaming. I reached out, touching his arm. "Why didn't you tell us?" I asked softly. Jake's voice trembled. "I didn't think anyone would listen. I was ashamed." He swallowed. "I'm sorry for disappearing, for breaking your car, for everything." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "I forgive you," I said. "You have to promise me you won't disappear again." He nodded, eyes shining. "I promise." Dad stepped forward. "Son, we love you. We'll do better." Mom joined us in the circle. "We're a family. We'll face this together." Mike stood back, smiling softly. I felt a surge of gratitude for him, for Jake's survival, for this moment. I moved to the cabin door and locked it, the click echoing in the quiet room. Turning back, I placed my hand on Jake's. He met my gaze, and I saw hope flicker there. Outside, the cracked pavement glimmered in the morning light, each fissure a testament to what we'd endured and what we could rebuild. I squeezed his hand. "We'll fix this," I said, "brick by brick." And as the sun climbed higher, bleeding gold through the pines, I believed it. The road ahead would be uncertain, but we would walk it together, one step at a time.